Um, Great. So hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight for this online workshop. So we're here for the information session for migrant workers on the new temporary immigration pathway that was recently announced by the Canadian government. My name is Stacey Gomez. I'm a member of No One is Illegal Halifax Chibuktuk. And I'm also joined by Thiago, who's going to be giving us a presentation around this new program, answering your questions. Thiago is an immigration lawyer and will be sharing his expertise with us tonight. Also, just to say that we encourage questions, so feel free to message us throughout the presentation. And we're going to be sharing those questions with Thiago, and we'll also have a question period where we're going to be answering your questions. And we're currently live on Facebook and YouTube. We may have someone join us a bit later on as well. Hola a todos y todas, saludos. Muchísimas gracias por estar aquí con nosotros. Quería dar un pequeño mensaje en español para decirles que pueden enviar sus mensajes, sus preguntas en español. Desafortunadamente, con este programa hay un requisito de idioma, de inglés, que Thiago nos va a hablar más acerca de eso. Entonces, están todos y todas bienvenidos. Muchísimas gracias. And so with that, I am just going to pass it over to you for your presentation.
All right. Thanks a lot, Stacey. Yeah, so thanks everyone for coming in. What I'm doing today is just kind of giving you an overview of this new immigration pathway, which was just announced on Wednesday. So everything is very new. Very little is known about this program. And the reason we're doing it doing this presentation right now is because what we do know about the program leads us to believe that if you do qualify for this, you should begin working on it, begin working on your application now so that you're able to apply for when it becomes open in a few weeks. All right, so I'm just gonna. All right, so I think it's helpful to go into a bit why this pathway exists. Why was this pathway created? Well, for three reasons. Number one, Canada, for demographic reasons, for political reasons, for a number of reasons, wants to maintain its immigration targets. So the Immigration Office, because of the lack of immigration last year due to COVID, has set a new level of a little bit over 400,000 to be immigrated to Canada this year. They want to do that, but they don't want anyone actually traveling to Canada. So the government has announced a program of really focusing on the people who are already here and trying to convert them from temporary status into permanent status. Number two, the second reason is because of, well, frankly, groups like No One is Illegal Halifax, groups that focus on publicizing the difficulties that people with temporary status have in Canada. And it's become a much more important issue across the country. And that's particularly true of seasonal agricultural workers, people in what used to be called low-skilled occupations are now called essential occupations. Traditionally, these jobs didn't have very many pathways for permanent residency. So this temporary pathway was created in order to give people in those occupations a way to stay in Canada permanently. And finally, the last reason is that the lack of the border restrictions that were created due to COVID-19 has had a dramatic effect on across the board on Canadian industry. So the government, by making more temporary residence permanent, is looking for a way to relieve that. So I go into all that because it's relevant. First off, this is an important step. It's basically the first time that migrant farm workers, that seasonal migrant farm workers are able to potentially immigrate to Canada. So it's important. But also, a lot of what I've just mentioned is going to be temporary. So if COVID hopefully abates, don't expect this pathway to become permanent. So if you qualify for it, you may want to take advantage of it as it comes. Stacy will be sending out this PowerPoint or document based on it shortly thereafter. So as I've just described, there's not a ton known about this pathway. Everything comes from this link that I've just included in this pathway in this slide. I guess I can also copy and paste it and put it in the group chat so people can click on it. I think that would work. 1 second. Sorry, we're just learning this. I'm going to put it in our private chat, and then Stacey can put it out to everyone. But that is the only document that outlines this program. Everything else, everything that you've read in newspapers that you've heard, comes from this link. That will change, but as of right now, that's the only information. And this is what's called a public policy. It's not based on law. It's not based on legislation. This is something that the Immigration Department just created. It was created 1 week ago, and will become active in 2 weeks. So these policies can be changed at any time. So be aware of that when you're preparing your applications. So timelines. Again, this policy was announced 2 weeks ago. It was announced last week. It will open 2 weeks from now on May 6th, and is scheduled to stay open for 6 months. It probably won't stay open for 6 months. This program, the one we're looking at for essential workers, is open only until the recruitment cap is reached. Once a certain number of people apply, they will stop accepting applications. So let's talk about that. The number of applications they'll accept is 30,000, and that's not even full applications. The way this application will be submitted is online. As soon as an applicant uploads all the documents, provides all the information, and hits submit, that's when you click submit. That will in the government's website create a counter, and that counter will increase by 1. As soon as that submit button has been hit 30,000 times, the program will stop being active. So keep an eye on the quota. Usually these spaces go very, very quickly. For example, 2 years ago, there was a quota of, what was it? I think 15,000 or around 15,000 to sponsor parents and grandparents in Canada. That quota filled in 8 minutes. So if you do qualify, be sure to get your application in as soon as you possibly can, for even on May 6th, in a few weeks' time. So it will be operated on a first-come, first-served basis. Now, everything I've just said about the quota and it closing down when it reaches a certain amount, that does not apply if you speak French. So the government also wants to increase the number of Francophone immigrants to Canada outside of Quebec. So if you speak French and if you apply and if you meet the qualifications, you'll get in regardless of whether if you applied after the quota is hit. Okay, so now let's talk about eligibility. There are 4 basic requirements for the temporary public temporary public policy pathway for essential workers. Number 1, work experience. Number 2, language ability. Number 3, you have to be in Canada. And number 4, you have to be employed. So let's go through each one of these one by one to go into some more detail. Okay. So first, you need work experience. This is going to be the most important qualification. So you need 1 year of work experience in an eligible occupation in the past 3 years. So under the way it's written now, this appears to apply to seasonal agricultural workers. So even though seasonal agricultural workers may not have worked for 1 full year because they only work during growing seasons, if you've accumulated the equivalent of 1 full year in the past 3 years, you may be eligible for this program. So what that means in practice is that they'll be looking for either 1 full year continuously or a certain number of hours. The equivalent, so for example, and that the number of hours you will have to have worked in the past 3 years is 1,560. So if it can show that you've worked 1,560 hours through pay stubs mostly, you should be eligible for this program. So that can be you working for 5 months full time, and then not working for 5 months, and then working for another 5 months full time, and then not working for another 5 months. So it can be seasonal. It can also be part time. If you work 20 hours for 2 years, that's considered the equivalent of 1 year full time. It has to, your work experience needs to also be in Canada, and it also needs to be in 1 or more of the eligible occupations. There's a list of occupations that the government deems essential, and those are organized by National Occupation Codes, or NOC codes, and I'll go into what those NOC codes are in a bit. Your work experience must be work, so you must have received wages, salary, or commission. So you can't be volunteering. You can't be self-employed. So if you own your own business or if you're a contractor, that doesn't count either. So Uber drivers, taxi drivers will not be eligible for this program. And your work must have been authorized. So you must have had a work permit when you obtained this equivalent of 1 year of work experience. If that work permit is closed, your work experience must have been obtained through the employer listed on the work permit. All right. So here are a list of some of the most common eligible agricultural occupations. Your NOC code, your job code, is found on your labor market impact assessment that you used to submit your work permit application. If you don't know what yours is, you can contact your employer or the representative who helped you submit your work permit application. It's a 4-digit code that corresponds to a job. Canada has organized every job that it can think of according to a series of 4-digit numbers. My job as a lawyer was a 4-digit number, teachers, plumbers, all different types of jobs. So here are the most common ones for agricultural workers. Service supervisors, general farm workers, working in a greenhouse, if you're working on a fishing vessel, if you're a harvester, if you're working in landscaping, loggers, food processors, industrial butchers and meat cutters. I won't go into all these, but you can read them there. So there's a list. If your job is not in the list, you won't qualify. All of the list of all the jobs that qualify is back in this link. So make sure that your job qualifies before you even begin this process. Okay, so that's number 1, work experience. Number 2 is your language benchmark. I'll answer all the questions at the end, I guess. So we'll touch base with that. Number 2 is your language benchmark. So you need to reach what's called the Canada Language Benchmark level of 4. That's a level 4 is basically like a intermediate, lower intermediate level. A native English speaker is around a 10. Someone who speaks no English other than hello and goodbye is around a 1. So if that gives you a sense, there's a informal assessment tool that you can take. You'll need to kind of click the link and create an account, and you can take an online test. And that test will give you an idea of where you are. The reason, and again, I'm putting in the link. Oops. You need an official test. So the test that I just sent you, that's just for assessments. That's just to give you an idea of where your language is. You'll need to take an official test. There's only 2 for English that are accepted in Canada. One is the IELTS General, and the other is a CELPIP General. Your language test cannot be more than 2 years old. So check the dates of when you took your test to make sure that it's still useful. And if you feel that your job qualifies, if they have a qualifying job code, if you feel that you have the work experience and that you can meet this language benchmark, you might want to consider signing up for a language test as soon as you possibly can. If you're not sure, be careful, because these language tests can be expensive. They cost around $200. Obviously, if you won't qualify, then you wouldn't want to waste that money. But if you think you do qualify, be sure to schedule a language test as soon as you possibly can. Just Google IELTS and CELPIP, and you'll be able to you'll be redirected to where you can register. And if you have any questions, be sure to contact us so we can point you in the right direction. Okay, so you need work experience, you need language. As we've said, the government is doing this to keep people in Canada. So this application stream is a very unique quality in that you physically have to be in Canada. You have to be in Canada when your application is submitted during the submission period, which will be after May 6th. And you have to stay in Canada until your application is approved. So what that means is you can't submit your application and leave, and you must be in Canada during that entire period. So if you're about to leave Canada, if you've got your plane booked and you're going back home and you think you qualify, don't leave. Stay a bit longer. Make sure you submit your application, and make sure that you stay until it's approved. You must have valid status during both those periods, when you submit your application and when it's approved. So that can be your work permit, that can be a study permit, that can be what's a document called a visitor record, which looks like a work or study permit, but it's just for visitor status. Just make sure you don't run out of status. If you enter Canada on a visa and your passport is stamped or not stamped and there's no other document written or given to you, that means you have 6 months of visitor status from the date you entered Canada. So make sure you apply to renew your status, to extend your visitor status if you feel like you qualify. This application is only available to those who do not intend to live in Quebec. So they want French speakers, but not French speakers who live in Quebec. The reason is for that is because the Quebec government they have basically their own unique immigration system, and they didn't accede to this program. So what that means is if you live in Quebec and you have work experience from Quebec, you should be, you're not prevented from applying, but you'll basically have to prove that you don't intend to live in Quebec. So I don't know how you could do that. You could have a lot of friends outside of Quebec. You can have connections to another province. You can apply for a job outside of a province, rent an apartment, something like that. And you must, and this applies for all immigration, temporary residents, permanent residents, you must not be what's called inadmissible to Canada. People who are inadmissible are not permitted to be in Canada for whatever reason. There's a list of, I think, 6 or 7 reasons. For example, you've lied on an immigration application, criminal record, links to a terrorist group, things like that. So don't be inadmissible. And finally, the last requirement is that you be employed when your application is submitted. That's all. That's the only guidance. You must be employed. It can be in any position, in any capacity, full-time, part-time. It can be an essential occupation, one of those lists of the 4-digit codes. It can be in a non-essential occupation. You just have to be employed. I don't know why that requirement exists, but it is. If you're on leave for whatever reason, like you're on maternity, then you're not technically employed, so you won't qualify for this stream. Okay, so submission. This program will be submitted online through what's called the Permanent Residency Portal. It'll be listed online once this application opens. All applications must be submitted online. There's an exemption if you have a disability preventing you from submitting it online. You must submit your own application. There's actually no program for you to hire someone to submit an application for you right now. So if you hire someone to help you submit an application, basically that person will prepare the application for you, give it to you, and then you submit it. You can include your family members. So if your family, you can include your family members in this application. So that's your spouse, common law partner, and your children under the age of 22, generally. You must, when you submit your application, you must at least reference all these people who could be included in your as family members on your application, even if they're not going to be coming to Canada ultimately. So if you have a daughter who is 20 and is very happy in your home country and doesn't want to leave, you still have to reference her on the application, even if she's not going to be coming. So application fees, here's the cost. This is what it will be likely. We don't know exactly what it will cost because there's just isn't that much information on this program yet. So it'll be $1,050 for the principal applicant, that's you, $1,050 for your spouse or common law partner, and either $150 or $255 for each of your dependent children. When I say or, it's because we don't know. We're pretty sure that it's going to be $1,050 for you and your spouse, but we don't know at all what the price will be for dependent children. You'll need to do your biometrics. You've done that when you came to Canada, when you obtained your work permit. The government will not, if you forget a document, the government will not be returning your application. They will be refusing the application. So be very careful when you submit the application that you have all the required documents so you don't waste your application fees. Okay, so just to recap, this is an application that is temporary, that will not become permanent, and for the first time allows migrant farm workers to obtain permanent residency status, or the potential to obtain permanent residency status. It's capped at 30,000 applicants for people who speak English. So, and will be on a first come, first served basis, which means you very likely have a very narrow window to submit your application. When you submit your application, it must be complete. You must have the language test and all other accompanying documents, pay stubs, employment letters, things like that, when you submit the application. So here's my to-do list. First off, be very sure that you qualify before even beginning this process. A lot of what I've just described is expensive. It costs $200 to get your language test. You may need to do a medical exam. That's another $200. It costs money to obtain documents if you don't already have them. It may cost money or effort to obtain your proof of work experience. And finally, the application fees themselves are quite expensive. So make sure you qualify. Check your job code to make sure that the work you've done and your work permit qualifies. If you don't have a job code, for example, you have an open work permit, then speak with your employer and see if they can match up. See if you and them working together can match up your job to a NOC code and see if that NOC code qualifies. So if you don't have your labor market impact assessments, if that's how you came to Canada, speak with your employer and see if they can let you know what your NOC code is. If you do qualify and you're sure you qualify and you're sure you want to apply under this stream, you should book a language test as soon as you can. Spots are already filling up. As soon as this application stream was announced, the websites to register for a language test crashed because the demand was so high. So you want to book a language test as soon as you possibly can. And after you've booked a language test, begin obtaining the key documents. In addition to a language test, you'll need police certificates for every country that you've lived in after the age of 16 for 6 months or longer. So that will very likely be your home country. You probably won't need a police certificate from Canada. So just foreign countries you've lived in for 6 months or longer after you turned 18. If that includes your home country, regardless of whether or not what your home country is. So you could have been born in Kuwait and you moved out of Kuwait when you were 16 and lived somewhere else. Then you don't need a police certificate from Kuwait. Get your pay stubs to prove that you meet that 1,560 hours if you don't have 1 year of continuous work. Get your employment letters from your employers showing that you have that you worked in a specific position. Get your marriage certificates if you want to bring your spouse. Get your birth certificates if you want to bring your children. Again, you're the principal applicant, so all family members need to prove relationship to you. They can do that with their marriage certificates or birth certificates. And get your upfront medical exams. When you submit an application, you'll need to go through an immigration medical exam to see if you are medically admissible to Canada. If you've done one recently in order to come to Canada as a temporary worker, you should be able to use that. If you haven't, then you may want to book an upfront medical exam for yourself and for your family. And finally, after you've done that, after you've booked a language test, you're preparing, you've made arrangements to obtain the required documents, you should begin preparing the information. So when you submit this application, you'll need a complete history of your personal history. So all the jobs you've had, all the school you've done, if you were unemployed for periods of time, what you're doing, your complete history of your personal history, your travel history, so every time you left your country, and your address history, every address you've had over the past 10 years. You'll need to know all of that down to the year and month. So you'll need to know the year and month of every address you've had, the year and month of every job you've had, every school you've had in the past 10 years. And all that information will need to be accurate. And all that information will need to not contradict your previous applications to Canada. So you may want to check your work permits to make sure all the information corresponds. Okay, so I wanted to leave a lot of time for questions because there's a lot of questions about this program. Not a ton is known about it. Yeah, I guess I'll jump right in and start answering questions. All right,
yeah, if it's helpful, I have a list of the questions.
Okay, great, because I don't believe I can only see the newest ones.
Okay, yes. Okay, perfect. So first, thanks so much for all this great information. There have been tons of questions that have come in before the presentation, throughout the presentation. So there's definitely a lot of interest in this program. And so thank you so much for shedding some light for participants. So a few questions that have been asked. So one question, Jamaican temporary foreign workers had a medical done in Jamaica in February or later in order to come to Canada. They were not given any documentation. Is there any way to access that medical for the purpose of this PR application, or must they book a new one?
If it's in February of this year, then it should be, that should work. So you can contact the doctor who did the medical exam, and or the person who submitted your work permits application. Usually for temporary farm workers, there's the company contracts out to a representative, so you can contact them. They should be able to have that medical results form for you. It'll, at the top of the form, it says medical information sheet. So you can look at that. I'm going to see if I can find a sample online and say it and tell you what it should look like.
Okay, thanks so much.
When I do that, yeah, you can continue with the camera questions, I guess.
Okay, perfect. Yes. So let's see.
Oh, never mind. Found it.
Okay, perfect. Go for it.
I'm going to share my screen. Hold on a sec. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay, it says
yeah.
e-medical at the top.
Yes, I see
Okay,
it.
so your information sheet should look something like this. It'll be 1 or 2 pages and just have your basic information.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Alrighty. So we do have other questions, but also I think Donardo might be online. And so we wanted to give Donardo the opportunity to present himself, and then we'll continue on with the questions. Hi, Donardo. Can you hear us? Okay, I think he might be having some technical issues. So, hi, can you hear us? Okay, we can't hear you, unfortunately, so I think there might be some tech issues. So, yeah, maybe let's continue on with the questions, and then we can see about addressing those, and then maybe a bit later on, you'd be able to present yourself.
Okay.
Alrighty, so continuing on with the questions. So let's see. Okay, so there was a question of clarification. So you're saying that if an immigrant signed up for this and paid for it and received it, it will be permanent, then move to temporary? So it's a question of clarification.
Yeah, sure. So this is a permanent resident application. This is to give you what's called permanent resident status in Canada. Permanent resident status is very, very similar to Canadian citizenship. So you have the right to stay in Canada. You can work anywhere. You can, or not work anywhere. You can go to any province. You can work in any job. You can stay in Canada permanently. The only difference, and you can always leave Canada and return to Canada. The only difference is you have to maintain residency in Canada to maintain your permanent residency status. You can lose your status if you commit a serious crime, things like that. So if you're in Canada right now working on a work permit, that means you have temporary status. So that's the type of status that expires if your status document runs out and is subject to the limitations on your status document. So permanent residency status is just a lot better.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thanks so much for that clarification. So even as I go through these questions, there are more questions coming in. That's great. Thanks so much for leaving a lot of time for questions. So I'll continue on.
Okay.
And you've answered some of the questions that have come in, so I'll just skip those. So one question is, and this is in Spanish, alguien quería preguntar si consiguiera ir con un permiso en septiembre, ¿aún sería elegible? This one question asks, if I get a permit to come in September, will I be eligible at that time?
If you don't have work experience before September, no. So you need to have 1 year of skilled work experience before you apply. Actually, can you get into a conversation with this person?
Yes. Would you like me to connect with them after, do you mean? Or how do you mean?
Yeah, so basically, if they have work experience from before, if they have 1 year of work experience, and then they arrive in Canada in September and submit their application, then that will work. If the application hasn't been closed by then, and it probably will.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the requirements. So you must have the work experience already. But if you have the work experience and you arrive in September, and your application is ready and it hasn't closed, you can submit your application then.
Mm-hmm. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Entonces dice que uno necesita tener la experiencia de trabajo antes de y el experiencia que está reconocido a través de este programa. Entonces, si uno tiene esa experiencia y llega en septiembre, sí podría poner su aplicación, pero es posible que ya va a estar cerrado este programa por el interés que hay en este programa. Muchísimas gracias por tu pregunta. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All righty, continuing on. Where can I find the list of jobs that are eligible for this pathway program?
It's on that link. Actually, I'm going to try sharing my screen again. It's pretty useful.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm clicking the link. Okay, so this is that link where they have all the information. Again, this is this is the entire basis for the program as we know it now. This is called a public policy. So here's the public policy, just kind of describing the situation. Here's a bit more about the history of it. Here are the conditions, what I've just described, your 4 main requirements, and all the others. This is just saying your family members can come. Here's describing the application limits, fees, start and end dates, and this public policy relates to the essential worker application that I'm describing. It also relates to ineligible health-related occupations. It's kind of the same process, but it's applicable to healthcare workers. And here's Annex B. Here's other eligible essential occupations that aren't healthcare based. So here is a list of all the occupations. So cashiers, tool and die makers, bricklayers, people who work on docks, people work in mines, and here's the list. So if you can just search for your 4-digit job code and and see if it qualifies. So here you have light duty cleaners, those are custodians, janitors. Yeah, so here's that list.
Perfect. Thanks so much. And that is also, we did share that link both on Facebook and YouTube, where we're live streaming the event. So you can find that as well there. Okay, perfect. So following question. How long is the application going to take? I imagine I think that could either be how long will it take to fill it out? How long will it take to hear back?
So the way the application will work is you're going to basically put in some basic information about yourself and your family, and then upload a bunch of documents. So filling out the application should take a couple hours if you have everything ready. So make sure you have everything ready. Now, processing. We have no idea how long it's going to take. They've said that this is going to be processed quickly. So hopefully it'll be processed quickly. Some people are saying 6 months. The fact that you have to remain in Canada until the application is completed, is approved, to make sure that you're going to stay in Canada, that indicates that it may be processed quickly. On the other hand, this is a public policy. These types of application streams can be very finicky and kind of hit and miss. For example, they created a caregiver pilot a couple years ago, saying that the work permits would be processed in 6 months, and years later, not a single work permit has been processed. So your guess is as good as mine. My guess is it would be processed relatively quickly, but we don't know.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And I'm seeing a few other questions with that are very similar. For example,
one more. If you can qualify under any other program, you should probably do the other program. If you qualify under Atlantic Pilot or Express Entry, do those, because those have a history behind them. Those don't have. This whole policy is very exceptional. So if you can apply under something else, your application will be processed, maybe not quicker, but more regularly. Sorry for interrupting you.
That's all good. Thank you. Yes, perfect. I'm also reading through, there's lots of questions coming in, so I'm just trying to keep up with the questions. Also to say, we'll try to get to as many questions as possible, but I think, yes, we are getting a lot of questions. So,
sure.
And yeah, also, we can follow up as well later if we can't answer all the questions at this time. So a related question, can someone on AIPP waiting for new endorsement update, can they apply for this program?
Probably. If you qualify for it, yeah, there's nothing stopping you from applying for multiple programs. But again, if you can apply for something else, try to apply for something else. Your other program you're going to be applying under, like the Atlantic Pilot, that's what they're referring to, that doesn't have a hard cap. So if I were you, I would stick with the Atlantic Pilot. It doesn't have all these weird finicky aspects that this application does.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Are there any attachments to the job you're doing now or to the farm you are on? And I imagine that's if you're successful with your application.
When you obtain permanent residency status, you have a right to live and work anywhere in Canada. So you don't have to stay in any job. You don't have to stay in any place. In fact, if you wanted to, as soon as you become a permanent resident, you can quit and just you can quit and just live in the woods. It doesn't matter. You're a permanent resident. You have a right to stay in Canada. No, if you're a permanent resident, you can work and live anywhere in Canada and work for any job. And also, once you get permanent residence, you have a very clear path to Canadian citizenship.
Thank you. Let's see. Is there anything for people that don't have the CLB4 in the language test?
Not under this program. That's going to be a hard requirement. So, and by the way, you have to get a CLB4 in each of the 4 language proficiencies. So listening, reading, writing, and speaking. And that reminds me of something I forgot to mention in my presentation. So I'm just going to switch back real quick.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good.
Okay, so a CLB4, it's when you are taking the language test. If you're taking the CELPIP, a CLB4 is obtaining a 4 in each of the disciplines: listening, reading, writing, speaking. If you're taking IELTS, which is much more common, you must hit a 4.5 in listening, a 3.5 in reading, a 4.0 in writing, and a 4.0 in speaking. So the test scores are slightly different in IELTS and CELPIP.
Thank you. Another question. It looks like waiting for the physical exam is a long wait. Any advice on that?
Well, so it depends where you are. So the list of immigration medical examiners who can do the medical exams is available online. Just Google panel physicians, and well, why don't I just do that right now?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so the first thing, this is where you can find the panel physicians. Then you select country, Canada, province, Nova Scotia, and you'll see a list of all the panel physicians that are in the province. You can call or email any one of these people, and they all do the immigration medical exams. So make sure you contact every single one of them. If they can't get you in, let them know that you are able to do an immigration medical exam on very short notice in case they have a cancellation. And then just be ready to go there to provide the medical exam. So in Nova Scotia, basically all the physicians who can do it are in the Halifax area. Yeah, so that depends on your province. You can also use this to search for the immigration medical exams in your home country. See what's available in Jamaica. Yeah, so mostly in Kingston. Yeah, and again, you can contact any of these people and they should be able to set you up with an immigration medical exam.
Great. Yeah, that's very helpful information. So another question, is this program attached to the province where you're applying, or the applicant, once getting PR, can they move to another province?
No. So this program isn't attached to a province. You must not intend to live in Quebec. So if you intend to, if you can demonstrate that you intend to live outside Quebec, everything should be fine. And again, once you're a permanent resident, you have a right to live and work anywhere in Canada. There's nothing that can keep you in any province or in any job. So even if you, so in order to obtain permanent residency through this program, you must intend to live outside of Quebec. So let's say you become a permanent resident and you move to Ottawa, Ontario, and you find out that, oh, well, the rent is a lot cheaper on the Gatineau side of the river, which is right across the river. So you just move over there. Now you live in Quebec. That's totally fine. As long as you intend to live outside of Quebec, once you're a permanent resident, no one can keep you outside of any, no one can keep you in any province or outside of any province.
Thank you. So another question, when can we see the checklist with all requirements and application forms? Do you think by May 6th that they will release it?
I hope so. We do know it'll probably be the same sorts of things they ask for everyone. So, for example, police certificates, medical exams. They will ask for an IELTS test or a CELPIP test. They probably will ask for your letter of employment and your pay stubs, potentially T4s, maybe notice of assessment. So you can you should be able to guess about what most of the document requirements will be. But yeah, there's no indication of when they release it. Hopefully soon.
This is a related question. Will they ask for a criminal record check from our home country, and will that delay the process?
They'll ask for a criminal record check from your home country if you've lived there for more than 6 months in the past, or since turning 18, or in the past 10 years. It depends on which program you go under, but it may delay the process. We don't know. Usually criminal record checks are pretty difficult to obtain in a lot of countries, so they're more flexible on that. We don't know until we get the particulars of the application. But if I were you and you feel like you qualify for this, I'd get working on the criminal record check just in case. Oh yeah, and you can just Google Canadian immigration criminal record check, and they'll provide you with the instruction. I'll do it again. Hold on a second.
We're liking this screen sharing through this new platform.
Yeah, it's really useful. Okay, so just Google how to get a police certificate. And this will provide you with the information. So this will give you, like, for example, let's find out how to get a police certificate from Antigua. It'll tell you the name of the document you need to get. Here it just says police certificate, what you need to get it, the process of attaining it if you live there, if you're a citizen. Here's contact information. Be careful though, because some countries, the process of obtaining a police certificate is a bit different. You kind of need, Canadian immigration needs to reach out to that country to request it. And be careful because Mexico is one of those countries. So you don't need to provide a police certificate with your application if it's from Mexico. The government will basically send you we'll tell you about the process of obtaining a police certificate later on.
That is very helpful information.
And again, you don't need one from Canada.
Great, thank you. So another question. Do you have to be married to your common law spouse to take them up with you? Or are you able to bring them once you're a permanent resident?
So you can bring your spouse or common law partner to Canada. So a common law partner is someone you can prove that you've lived together at the same address for 1 full year, 12 months. So you usually do that with lease agreements. Sometimes if you have a joint bank account, things like that. So if you've lived together for 1 full year, you're a common law partner and you can bring them to Canada. Also, if you cannot marry your partner and cannot live with them for a full year, because of a reason related to refugee situation, like for example, if you're gay and you're from a country where it's very dangerous to be gay, and but you have a 1 year long relationship with a person that you want to bring to Canada. If you can show that it's dangerous to live with your partner in your home country or wherever you were living, then you should be able to bring them as well. But yes, you don't have to marry your common law partner, but obviously you can.
Thank you. And So we are, we've covered most of the questions that have been asked so far. And there's a question in the chat. Someone is wondering about having a consultation with you. And so, yeah, just want to throw that out there. I'm not sure if you saw the question.
Yeah, so you can reach out to me by my email. I'm going to leave it out here. You can reach out to me and we can work something out. I will be quite busy for the next few weeks, so I won't be able to get to you. Well, probably next few weeks, but yeah, there's my email if you want to reach out to me.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, we can share it directly with this person. And I'm also wondering if there's any way that we could put it on the screen as well. Maybe later on, Brittany, if you're able to do that. Brittany's helping us with tech. Amazing. Yes. So here's Thiago's email. So for those of you who would like to get directly in contact, thanks a lot.
Okay, sorry, this is a new question. Can you use a medical exam from May 20th, 2020? I don't know. Historically, if this were another immigration stream, no. They've said they're going to be flexible on this. So your guess is as good as mine.
Okay, thank you. All righty. So let's see if there's any more questions. Just a sec. There's a few questions that we have that seem to be questions of clarification.
Sure.
So how long do I have to have been traveling on the farm work program to be eligible for permanent residence?
So it's not about how long you've been under the program. It's not about how long you've been in Canada with a work permit. It's about the number of hours you've worked. If you haven't worked for 1 full year continuously, you must have worked 1,560 hours over the past 3 years. If you believe you're close, just get your pay stubs and start counting the hours.
Thank you. And let's see, I think that is most of our questions. And there was a question, how do I apply? So if you want to recap.
Yeah, it'll be through the government's online application system. Basically, you'll create an account, you'll put in basic information about yourself, and you'll upload a bunch of forms and documents. We can guess what some of those forms and documents would be, but we don't know exactly. And that's how that system will work. But we don't have the specifics yet.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And we got another question. Does the boss in the job that you're in have to get involved in the process?
Probably. So you'll need to be able to, you'll probably need to be able to prove that you have your work experience and also that you are currently working. I don't know if there's a way to do that without having your boss's involvement. If you're being given pay stubs, maybe you can just use that. Again, it's difficult to say because we don't know what the document requirements will be. If you qualify, but your employer is not willing to participate, you do have a right to a record of employment. So that's a document which shows basically your work history with that employer. It doesn't show the job description, which you'll need in the employment letter. But potentially that could qualify. Again, we don't have the specifics, so we don't know.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And we have
another question.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, that's a great question. Selinga asks, the working hours have to be accumulated under a work permit. No, they don't. Your work experience, as long as it was legally obtained, does not need to be under work permit. So that's an important distinction from different. That's an important distinction from other application streams. So if you were a student and if you're working, then you can use that work experience to qualify. I believe. Let me double check.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Pretty sure that's the case. So I'm checking, and I'm going to that web link that I've been giving out. So just see. Go down to. Yeah, it doesn't need to be in a work permit. It can be under a study permit, or under a visitor record if you're a minister or something. Okay. Any other questions?
Yes. So thanks everyone for all your questions. I'm sure that there may be other questions that folks will have. So we will maybe just give it a few minutes since there may be other questions that pop up.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, and thank you. I feel like we did kind of a marathon with these questions. So I really thanks a lot.
No, it's really helpful. And if you have any other questions, you can reach out to Stacy or myself, and we'll answer them.
Mm-hmm. Yes, for sure. And also here, while we're waiting to see if there's any additional questions, we have our contact information here. We're available on WhatsApp. And so feel free to reach out to us if you have follow-up questions, and we can pass them along as well. And yes, we're also here to provide support to migrant workers as well as all migrants. So we've been doing outreach, public education, advocacy, and direct support in solidarity with migrants, including migrant workers. So yeah, feel free to reach out to us. También hablamos español, entonces pueden estar en contacto con nosotros si hablan español también. And I also do want to have a little check to see if Donardo is on the line with us. So maybe Brittany can let us know. Alrighty, it looks like I think there might have been some technical issues, unfortunately. We were looking forward to having Donardo also on the line with us. But yes, we're continuing on, and thanks Donardo, and sorry that you weren't able to join us on the session. Alrighty, yep. I see. Okay, here's another question. Where can I get my record of employment if I'm afraid to ask my employer?
I think you can get it from the CRA. So if your employer's been filing taxes, and they should be, I'm just going to Google it real quick and see if I can find an answer.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good. Thank you. And while you're doing that, someone commented, Youngsun Song has a question there if you missed it about the physical exam. And yes, that had been answered. Thank you.
Yeah, so I believe you can get your record of employment from the CRA. If you are afraid of your boss, there's also a program in Canadian immigration law where if you're suffering from abuse, if your employer is threatening to withhold your wages or threatening your status in any way, reach out to us, and we can assist you. It could lead to a work permit to allow you, an open work permit to allow you to support yourself while the abuse is to kind of escape from that abuse.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And there is this an additional question as well. What if you apply and don't get through? Will it affect your work here in Canada?
No. No, your work permits, your temporary status and permanent status are two very separate things. Obviously, if you get permanent status, you don't need temporary status anymore, but applying for permanent status doesn't really give you temporary status. So they're just very separate.
Thank you. Can I book my medical exam for myself, or do I need to wait until immigration requires it?
You can do it now. But again, make sure you qualify first because they can be expensive.
Thank you. All right, maybe just give it a few more minutes. I also see that people are, we have a bit less people, so maybe, yeah, maybe people, maybe it would be good to close up in the next little while. But yeah, do want to give people an opportunity. I know we shared a lot of information, and so you may be thinking about what you would like to ask. So yeah, we'll just yeah, keep it open for a little bit longer in case there's any additional questions. And again, if you have questions, we encourage you to reach out to us on WhatsApp. And here is our number, 902-329-9595. Okay, here's a follow-up question. Regarding the open work permit, is support available for the application for free with the organization that this lawyer works for?
No one is illegal, I believe, will assist with those. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're happy to see how we can support. So we definitely encourage people to reach out to us, and we can have a chat about that.
Yeah, and that's for in circumstances of abuse.
Mm-hmm. Yes, the open work permit for vulnerable workers. Yeah, thank you for your question. Can we change jobs while we are applying for the new program?
Yeah, so you have to have the work experience, but once you have the work experience, then you can just be working in any position when you apply. So yeah, as long as you're working when you submit the application.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yes, thanks everyone for your really great questions. And yeah, there's definitely some similar questions, so some similar concerns that are being brought up. And so it's great that we're able to have this workshop online and to be able to share this information with others who have similar questions as well.
Yeah, this is great.
Okay, I'm not seeing any more questions at the moment. So yeah, I think we can start to wrap up. And again, feel free to reach out to us on WhatsApp if you have any follow-up questions, and we'll also share them with Thiago, and then we will get back to you. So yeah, just in closing, we just wanted to mention a few things. So first, we know that this program, there's still barriers for people to participate and to apply, including people who don't have English proficiency, people who are undocumented. And so there are still ongoing barriers, even for people who meet those certain requirements. Not everyone who applies is going to be accepted, unfortunately. And we know through participation in this workshop and through questions that we've been getting that there is a lot of interest in this program. And so, yes, we just want to share that, and also to say that it's not enough. This program isn't enough. It's a step, and we hope that that there are that people will be able to benefit and participate through this program. But we are continuing to call for full and permanent immigration status for all migrants. And so we encourage others to get involved in this movement as well. And feel free to get in touch with us, and we're happy to connect with you more around this. Also to say that we've been having conversations about how can we we're currently exploring how we could support people and through this process. And so we would encourage you to reach out to us. We're going to be creating a list of people who we can share updates with if there are developments in terms of how we can support people with this process, in terms of perhaps with like filling out applications. That's something we're still talking about to see if that would be possible. And also, I'm sure there's going to be ongoing updates around this program because not much detail has been shared so far. And so, yes, we would encourage you to get in touch with us. Let us know if you would like to keep updated about this program, and we're happy to do that. And I had another question. Okay. So let's see here. So if I want to apply, how can I get help to go take the English test? So I can answer that if that if that sounds good. Okay, so we would encourage you to reach out to us if you have if you are needing support around that, and we'll see what is possible for us to do, how we might support, how we might be able to support around that. So yeah, once again, please get in touch with us, and we'll see how we can support. And so, yes, thanks so much for that question. And yeah, that's it. I also want to thank you, Thiago, for your time, for sharing with us all this information that I'm sure has been super helpful for people that are participating. And so, yeah, thank you so much for sharing your time and knowledge with us tonight.
No, thanks so much for putting all this on. This is great.
Thank you. Alrighty. So yeah, with that, we're gonna close things off, and I encourage you to share this link with other people who may also be interested in this program. And this is going to be available both on Facebook and on YouTube, where we have streamed live this evening. So yeah, thank you so much, everyone. Thanks, Brittany, who's supporting on tech as well. And yeah, we'll see you next time.
All right. Thanks a lot.